According to the Peter G. Peterson Foundation on March 5th of 2021, since 2008, student debt has more than doubled. The amount of student debt owed in the year 2020 approximated about $1.6 trillion. In 2008, it was nearly double that, with only $600 billion being owed. We are currently living in a student debt crisis that not only negatively impacts the students themselves, but has broader negative impacts on the US economy. We have to find a way forward. So today, we will look at the problem of student loan debt and how it has negatively impacted the economy. Then, we can look towards specific solutions for dealing with student loan debt. Before finally looking at how these two solutions will lead to long-term solvency and economic prosperity. But first, in order to understand this problem, we have to break down the crisis in of itself. This student loan debt crisis is twofold. So first, let's look at what the crisis is, and then look at its negative economic impacts. But for the crisis itself, Forbes from November 13th, 2021 explains it best. They say, quote, according to the latest statistics, there are more than 45 million student loan borrowers whose collective student debt totals $1.7 trillion. Without reform, student loan borrowers and their families will cow to be saddled with student loan debt. And in time, the federal government will be forced to be held liable for these student loan borrowers due to the amount that will probably default on their student loans. Many student loan borrowers focus on paying off their debt first, and many people even struggle to pay off the debt in the first place. Because so many people are worried about their student loans, this in turn has negative impacts on the US economy. As the Education Data Initiative of October 18, 2021 reports that from the years of 2019 until 2020, student loan debt increased by 3.5%. As such, the economy fell by a total of that same margin. There is clearly a correlation and causation between student loan debt and a worse economy. Because as student loan debt increases, the economy decreases. In order to achieve economic prosperity, we need to remove obstacles such as student loan debt that only serve in order to decrease the economic stability of Americans and the American economy. So now that we have a better idea of what the student loan debt crisis is, we can look towards two plausible solutions. Then two solutions stick out by first canceling student loan debt up to $50,000. This means that if you are a student who owes less than $50,000 in student loans, you would be left off completely off the hook and would not have to pay more student loans. If you are a student who owes more than that, you can be off the hook for that $50,000. This would become as immense help as many students owe hundreds of thousands of dollars in student loan debt. According to the Conference for a Responsible Federal Budget on June 3rd of 2021, they say, quote, canceling $50,000 would write out student loan debt for approximately 36 million borrowers and would overall decrease debt for 7 million people. This initiative would cost about $950 billion. And while that may seem like a heavy price tag, it is only going towards eliminating student loan debt for many borrowers. By paying this short-term cost, it will in turn lead to better economic prosperity and can lead to relief for 43 million Americans, and would take student loan debt off their back and would allow them to focus on their long-term economic goals. But we also need a solution for the students of today and for tomorrow. That's why a second solution would be to expand Pell Grants, both in terms of the number given and in terms of the amount that they cover. According to NerdWallet on June 1st of 2021, that Pell Grants currently only have a max of $6,495. That is clearly nowhere near enough in order to fully cover the extent of a college education. They are also limited in terms of their numbers and size. They mostly currently only go to low-income students, and about 2 times the amount of, and they're currently receiving less than 2 times the amount they have in previous years. So when we double the amount of Pell Grants given, and when we double their amount, we see that this will overall cover the more cost of education, and this allows for Pell Grants eligibility to extend wider reaches into middle class and low income families in which both communities often rely on loans in order to pay for a college education. This also opens up the opportunity for people to go to college who might not have been able to, and they can get an education and participate in the economy due to the coverage of the Pell Grant. So, how do these two solutions result in long-term economic prosperity and long-term solvency? Well, first off, we can see in our first solution that by canceling student debt up to $50,000 for those who currently are paying off student debt, we can see that this will overall serve as a relief of a huge financial burden that many of them are currently facing. According to the Conference for a Responsible Federal Budget on January 4th of this year, that Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer has offered this proposal to President Joe Biden and said that he can cancel $50,000 of student debt through an executive order. So whether it be through an executive order or through an act of Congress, we can see that there are feasible ways to solve this solve this issue of student debt in the current status quo. But looking towards the long term, by doubling Pell Grants, it ensures that for many students that loans will be a small problem. Congress can reintroduce the Pell Grant Preservation and Expansion Act. Pell Grants are an essential way for students to have access to education and limiting, if not avoiding, the reliance many students have on loans in the first place. We'll see a future that expands education and for students because they will not be burdened by the heaviness of student loans. Student loans and student loan debt have crippled the American economy. So today we have seen through these two solutions that we can overall see a better economy by solving for student loans and the student loan crisis.